Rule 35, selection of penalties. What I'm going to do here for this rule is I'm going to go over with you what the rule actually says in the book, and then I'm going to tell you how we do it as a practical matter on the field. The way we do it as a practical matter on the field is well within what the rule says, but it's not exactly the same. So you should know both. It appears like the rule itself was written at a time when we spoke differently than we do now. Basically, the rule says that when the umpire sees a foul or he has satisfactory evidence of a foul, that he or she is to blow the whistle and confer with the other umpire and then announce the foul and the penalty and proceed with the penalty. The umpire may call a foul on a dead ball. In other words, that's usually, say, a yellow card or something like that where a player is arguing with the umpire. That's generally when that happens. But it could be something else. Could be an illegal horse change when you're given timeout for tack or something, and you change horses. You didn't have permission. Anyway, so the point is you can call a foul when the ball's live or when it's dead. So anytime. Wide range of discretion for the umpire here. This rule gives the umpire pretty much complete discretion whether to call fouls or not and which ones to call and so forth. Okay. They give you some factors in this rule to consider as an umpire when you're calling fouls, and we'll just list those quickly in this section. Degree of danger of the foul, location on the field, player position, and frequency of similar fouls. It also says simultaneous penalties can be offset. It also says that dead ball fouls can offset penalties, and we discussed that in another section. We'll talk about it more in a minute. But that's pretty much arguing with the umpire can offset a foul that was just called in your favor or partially offset it or what have you. So that's basically the rule. It's written in. And then the rule goes on to talk about allowing the umpire a penalty 10, discretion to kick players off the field or impose penalties on them for poor behavior, things like that. And then it also talks about for repetitive fouls and flagrant fouls that the penalties can be increased. So basically what the rule says is the umpire should consider those factors that were mentioned and then gives umpires complete discretion to pretty much do whatever they want in the best interest of the game. So it's not that helpful, but the way we do things now in our policies and procedures that fit within this rule are very helpful. And let's just go right to those. If you have a USP professional umpire, they're going to follow a certain protocol when umpiring a game. And if you are not a USPA professional umpire, but you do umpire a lot, listen in and pick up a couple tips that might help you with your umpiring. So basically, the professional umpires, they call the fouls that they see, of course. Okay, but they do one thing that's important. They do what's called playing the advantage. So if a player gets fouled and it's to that player's advantage for us not to blow the whistle and not to call the foul, then we won't do it. So in other words, we'll watch the foul happen. We'll wait a second and a half, maybe 2 seconds to see how the play develops. And if the player that got fouled gets loose with the ball, and he's got a straight ride to goal, we won't call the foul. We'll let it go. And then if that's not the case, if he was disadvantaged, then we'll blow the whistle and assess a penalty. Okay? So that's one thing you need to know, and that's why some fouls aren't called, because we purposely don't call them, and that's for the advantage of the team and the player that got fouled. Okay? So that's playing the advantage. It's a great thing to do. Saves a lot of whistles. Players like it. Okay. So we call the fouls that we see. Okay? And as soon as we call a foul, we immediately talk with the other umpire. Generally, we're radioed in, so it happens very quickly. And the other umpire either didn't see it at all, in other words, he wasn't looking or couldn't see through a pack of horses, so he'll agree with the umpire that called the foul. The other thing that can happen is the other umpire saw it and agrees. And then the third thing that can happen is the other umpire saw it and disagrees, in which case we will go to the third man who's usually radio it in with us and have a quick rendering of a decision from the third man. Then once that happens, probably takes 3 or 4 seconds. Once that happens, then we go to ball placement. And then we'll say, well, you know, what do you think, where do you think the ball should be placed? And we each have our reasons why. And usually they're identical. This takes a second or two. And I'll go over that here in a minute. And then if we disagree on ball placement, we'll go to the third man again, and the third man will tell us where the ball should be placed, you know, agree with one of us or what have you. And that's how we do it, and we do it in just a matter of seconds. This is why we don't like players arguing with us when it comes to non-procedural items, which are items that involve judgment. Whether the foul happened or not, that's judgment. Ball placement, that's judgment. You cannot say anything to us about that. Now, as a practical matter, players do this all the time, and their timing is terrible. They are arguing with us on where the ball should be placed or whether they fouled or not, while we're talking to the other umpire on the radio or possibly talking to the third man. And it's distracting and it's difficult, and it goes against one of our main overriding principles, which is keeping the game going, because they're wasting our time and they're distracting us. So if you argue with your umpire on a regular basis during this process, expect a yellow card, because that's the only way we can get you to cooperate. Okay, so just think about yellow cards and red cards and offsetting penalties as us discouraging that behavior that we don't like, because it distracts us and prevents us from doing our job. So just remember that when you decide that you're going to offer up your opinion while 3 umpires are on the radio talking to each other, trying to decide and discuss where the ball should be placed or what happened with the foul. The factors that I just listed in the rule, those are all valid factors, but let me simplify this for you, because in order for the USPA professional umpires to keep consistent, and when I say consistent, our protocol is to be consistent in the game with both teams, to be consistent across the country with the other professional umpires. The consistency across the country between tournaments and between teams in a specific game is very important to us. In other words, if you have me umpire your tournament, or you have one of the other 25 or so umpires, any one of them umpire your tournament, your experience should be very, very similar, and our thought process should be similar. And that's what we're shooting for. We're human, not perfect, but we're working on it. And we really are working on it. The things that we do to stay consistent: we have meetings, we go over video, we go over thought process, we go over protocol, we go over fouls, and we change up all the time. Guys fly in from the East Coast to the West Coast to the East Coast, and all over the country, and we're constantly mixing it up. We move umpires around constantly, and that helps the umpires that are staying in place for the season get the view and the thought process of the umpires who are visiting, and vice versa. And then we all meet together at meetings and go over plays and ball placement. So with all that happening, your consistency with a USPA professional umpire is going to be excellent. Pretty much as excellent as humans can do. You know, we're humans, and that's a problem. So that's where we're at with consistency. So very basically on the field, it kind of works like this. The factors that we consider are the direction in which you're going when you got fouled. Are you going towards your goal, away from your goal, or towards the sidelines or boards? The speed at which the foul happens. Are you at a walk? Are you at a canter? Are you at a gallop? And what is between you and the goal? Are there defenders back there? Is it another one of your players alone for a pass? Or is it clear field? Are you on a breakaway? And then also, and not as important, but we do consider this as well, when the foul happened, who had possession of the ball just before the foul happened? So was possession taken away by the foul, or did you have possession the whole time and you fouled while you had possession? Okay, so those are the factors that we look at. They're very similar to the factors that are listed. In fact, they fall within those factors that are listed, so you know we're within the envelope of the rule when we do that. So if you're headed towards your goal and you're at a brisk canter or gallop or better, you'll likely get a penalty. And you're fouled, your penalty ball placement will likely be at the next penalty line. Okay, so for example, if you're fouled, if you're going north and you're 30 yards south of the center line and you're fouled, we'll probably move it to a 4 if you're at a gallop. Okay, because moving it to the center line is only 30 yards up, and we're going to put all the players between you and the goal. We probably won't do that. Okay, if you're same scenario, if you're 40 yards from or 45 yards from the center line, you'll probably get a center hit. If you're headed in the opposite direction of your goal, so you're on a defensive play, in other words, you have a back shot and you get fouled, probably going to be spot. If you're at a walk and you get fouled, regardless of what direction you're headed, probably going to be a spot. If you're on a breakaway and there's nothing between you and the goal and you get fouled, it's going to be moved up probably 2 penalty lines. So if that's happening 40 yards from center and you're on a breakaway, we're probably going to put it at a 4. We may just skip the center line altogether. Depends on the breakaway, how fast you're going. You know, is it a clean breakaway? Is there any defender between you and the goal? What's going on? Okay. If you're headed towards the boards and you get fouled, you're probably going to get a spot hit. Or the sidelines, you're probably going to get a spot hit. Now, that's true on the field, except within the 60-yard lines, we'll move them over to the penalty lines. Okay, we generally don't give spot hits inside the 60. It gets complicated and there's not a lot of space there. So if you're on a defensive play and you're inside the 60, we'll probably move it laterally over to the penalty line that's at your same latitude. So for example, you know, you're headed away from goal and you have a back shot and you're between right at the 60, maybe between the 40 and the 60, we'll probably move it to 60. If you're headed towards the goal, okay, and you get fouled inside the 60, it's probably going to be a 40-yard or a 30-yard penalty. Okay, the closer you get, the further up we'll move it. Okay, so if you have a back shot to goal and you're at the 30-yard mark, probably going to move it right over to the 30-yard mark. Even if you're all the way in the corner and you have a back shot, we may move it to the 40 or to the 60. Okay, so that's how we operate as far as ball placement, and we take all those factors into consideration. When the umpires are assessing the penalty, so the whistle is blown, foul's been called, the first thing the umpires will do, the professional umpires will do, is they'll assess the foul that was called. Okay, one will say to the other one, got the black player coming over too much on that near side back shot. The other umpire will say, yeah, I agree with that, I think he did. And then we'll say, okay, so where would we place that? I think it's a 4. Yeah, I agree. I think he's headed to goal. We're going to put it at a penalty 4. That's the first layer. Now we've agreed. Now we've agreed on ball placement. Now we go to the second layer. Are there any offsetting factors? Okay, was there an excessive appeal? Did the player who got fouled change the line a little bit or a lot? Okay, those are offsetting factors. So first we do the analysis of the penalty and the ball placement. Then we overlay it with the analysis of offsetting factors, unsportsmanlike conduct, changing of the line, dangerous riding of some kind. You know, did the player that got fouled, was he being a jerk and really pushing the line harder than he has to be, and then he made unnecessary contact with the player that fouled? Okay, that's an offsetting factor. So what we'll do, we have the penalty assessed, ball placement assessed. Now we overlay the offsetting factors. Are there any offsetting factors? And the other umpire will say, well, he did change the line a little bit. All right, well then let's offset it and throw it in. Or, you know what, let's offset it, we'll give it to him from the spot. Okay, or there was an excessive appeal, so let's offset it and do whatever we decide to do with the offset. Okay, and at that point, the penalty will be announced. This is a penalty 4 against white team that's been reduced to a spot hit because of offsetting foul of changing the line. Or it's a penalty 4 against the white team. That's it. Right away violation. Coming over after the shot. Whatever the foul is. And that's how we do it. Okay? And it's very logical, it's very systematic, and it's very fair. And it's done every single time. And that's why we like to work with each other, because we know this process. The only takeaway from this is know how we do it, so you know why we're doing what we're doing. And that should encourage you to listen to your umpire and try not to distract your umpire while he or she is in this